Hello and welcome back. We're continuing on the 1968 Volkswagen Beetle plastic model kit, and today we're building the engine. I started out by gluing the fan housing to the engine compartment, at least that's what they call the part in the directions. I mean, most of these parts make sense, but that one didn't. After dropping it, I let it set a moment before I glued the air ducts for the heat exchanger without realizing it would be blocking the intake manifold. You'll probably notice they disappear here in a moment. Luckily, the glue had not set hard, so I was able to pull them back apart again and start over. That was also a lesson learned. Follow the order of operation in the manual. I got ahead of myself, and lucky at the same time, I was able to recover without damaging any of the parts. After gluing down the manifold, I had to go back and add some more glue to the fan housing because it was moving around quite a bit. That was another lesson. Don't be afraid of the glue. It works pretty quick. As long as you're not mopping it on, it'll evaporate without damaging the parts. Once I had the carburetor and generator mount in place, I was able to go back and reinstall the air ducts before moving on to the fuel pump and the air cleaner. When installing the air ducts this time though, I made sure there was nothing else going to be in the way. It wasn't too long after that, I noticed the generator mount didn't look right, and the more I fiddled with it, the less it wanted to go into the right position. I wasn't sure what was going on, so I pulled it off a couple of times and tried to reapply the glue and gently trying to coax it into place, but it just wasn't working. It took another minute or so of studying before I finally realized the dipstick tube was too long and the hole the post was supposed to fit down into that held it in place was caked up with paint. Once I figured out what the problems were, it was quickly addressed with my sprue cutters and an appropriate sized drill bit. You'll see that coming up here in a moment. Once that was done though, it went right together like it was made that way, and going forward I took more care in cleaning up the spots where glue needed to go to hold the parts in place. I now needed to install the generator, and I made sure I had cleaned the spots for it before putting it in place. Adding the air cleaner was the last part to the upper engine assembly. It had 2 small glue points, so it didn't take a lot of cleaning up to get it in place. Here I married the upper part of the engine with the block and transmission and installed the transmission axle covers. These went on quickly and were probably the easiest thing to put on this little guy since I started. Installing the exhaust manifolds concerned me a little bit. They're a decent sized part compared to the rest of the engine, and they were only held in place by 2 tiny glue points. This definitely reinforces the notion that these little things are not toys. At this point, this thing's starting to look like the real deal. I mean, other than the crappy paint job, this little guy looks just like the engines that used to cover the garage at my parents' house. I'm learning more and more about the characteristics of this glue. It's really not much more than a solvent that dissolves a thin layer of the plastic and then evaporates, allowing the 2 parts to become more or less one. It's also thin enough that you can just hold the parts together and then apply a little bit of the glue, and it will wick right into the gap and set within just a few seconds. Once I've added the heat shields, we've basically got an engine on our hands, and we're ready to move on to the chassis, which will be the next video coming up. As I let this little guy dry, I want to say thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and if you like what we've done so far, please hit the button in the middle to subscribe, and you'll get notified when new videos are released. Also, the next video is on the right, the playlist is on the left. So thank you again, and stay well.